Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Canadiens Connection podcast right here on Rocket Sports Radio, where we are talking to you each week about the Montreal Canadiens. We're keeping you informed, engaged, entertained, all about your favorite NHL franchise. My name is Amy Johnson. I'm your host each and every week for the show. And this happens to be episode 373 of the show, believe it or not, titled What Every Habs Player is Fighting For and Against. A little mysterious, this one, and we're going to explain that in just a minute. But first, let me introduce my wonderful co-host. He's our founder and president here at Rocket Sports. His name is Rick Stevens. We're a week into November. Rick, how you doing? And a little cloud of mystery around the podcast today.
There is, but fortunately, we're gonna resolve that mystery. We're gonna answer those questions once we get to second segment. It's been not a great week for the Canadiens. It was a great week for me. Nobody cares, but it was a great birthday week.
Yeah, it was your birthday.
Real nice family moments, and now the Canadiens didn't do their part, but fortunately, I got an unexpected surprise from my Minnesota Vikings, who beat the Detroit Lions. I'm ashamed to say I didn't pick them in the picks pool, but nonetheless, JJ McCarthy back, and a big win. I haven't had a chance to talk to Mike Raschel about it yet. Mike is a big Lions fan, and we usually kind of trade some friendly barbs before and after. We'll do that, I'm sure. But yeah, big Vikings win and a good birthday week.
I know you had put in a special request last week that I have a conversation with the Philadelphia Flyers to give you a birthday eve Montreal Canadiens win.
Didn't happen
for you on Tuesday, but I'm sorry.
Didn't happen.
Sam Montembeault was in that, so
yeah, that didn't work.
Sorry.
Didn't work out so well.
Too soon? Too much? Sorry. Here's what we are going to bring you today on the show. In our first segment, that's where we break down the week in review, any Habs news. We get to the prospect report and news from around the NHL. So we're going to quickly recap the 3 games that have taken place since our last episode, get you up to date on the roster report. We've got some Laval Rocket updates to bring you, as well as some highlights from just around the hockey world in general. Then our second segment is when we bring in that big topic. We said that the title of the show was What Every Habs Player is Fighting For and Against. Well, the big topic itself is called Every Player Has a Versus. The Canadiens' individual battles. So when we say what every Habs player is fighting for and against, we are going to examine what some of the key players for the Montreal Canadiens are up against in kind of their unseen opponents, not the Habs versus a rival team, but what individual players are battling for and against on the ice. It's going to be a really interesting segment. Maybe some things for you to think about in ways that maybe you haven't thought about them so far in this young season. And then finally, in our third segment, we will, of course, have our Canadiens Connection question of the week, where we ask you, all of our fans and friends and followers, if a question related to this week's show. We want you to send in your best responses to that. We pick the best ones and read them out on next week's show. So the way to be in touch with us, whether you're answering the question of the week or if you just have a question, an opinion, a statement of your own that you'd like to make, something you want to say, something to make your voice heard, that we might read out on the show and spread to all of the Habs fans around the world who listen to the Canadiens Connection podcast. Here are the ways to be in touch really quickly. You can text us 24/7 on the Rocket Sports text line. That's 5853-ROCKET, 5853-ROCKET. And we actually have a response in segment 3 that came in on our text line this past week that we want to read. You can also drop us a comment if you listen to the podcast on Spotify. You can leave a comment on Spotify. If you watch the podcast on YouTube, you can leave a comment on YouTube for us, or the old-fashioned way, hit us up on social media. @Habs Connection is the handle. @Habs Connection on X, Facebook, or Instagram. So many ways for you to be in touch. There's no excuse for you not to. Get your answers in for the question of the week. Send us your questions, your comments, your thoughts, your opinions. We want to hear them all. And what we want to do right now is take you back in time a little bit to a week ago, last Saturday, the 1st of November, when Ottawa was in town visiting the Montreal Canadiens at the Bell Centre. We'll see if tonight's game, Saturday night's game against Utah, can actually get done in regulation, because none of the games that the Canadiens played this week were finished in 60 minutes. The Ottawa game only went to overtime. Montreal getting the win. Thanks to not Cole Caulfield, surprisingly.
Yeah, Alex Newhook with the overtime winner. A bit of a Jekyll and Hyde week for Alex Newhook. He was Alex the Good on this night, getting that overtime winner. Caulfield did score in this game. He had the opening goal. Juraj Slafkovsky on the power play. And Ivan Demidov with a third period goal. It was, a bit of an up and down performance by the Canadiens. What they did well was keep the Ottawa Senators at bay. Ottawa Senators had just 17 shots on goal. Unfortunately, Sam Montembeault only saved 14 of them, just 14 saves, 824 save percentage. He was not very good in this. And if you doubt that, just take a look at Tim Stützle's goal in the third period.
Yeah.
Even the French media was saying, where in the world is he? He'd lost the net. He was nowhere near the net. I don't know what he was doing on that play. Anyway, the Canadiens, they came to his defense literally, and then outscored the problems that they had on that night, winning 4-3 in overtime.
Definitely. So then we talked briefly. We kind of alluded to the Philadelphia game where the Flyers came to town to visit the Canadiens on Tuesday night. Sam Montembeault back in net again. I'm not sure if it was just because the Canadiens got a win on Saturday that was, okay, let's give Monty another start, but Philly as the opponent. Philly, who has been a pretty average team so far. This game goes all the way to the shootout, and it is the Flyers who come out with an enormous win, particularly after they went up early in this game. Montreal kind of stomped back, and Philly did finish it in overtime 5-4.
Well, interesting. You mentioned Montembeault got the start. And for those wondering about, who's the number one goalie and is it right to call Jakub Dobes the number one goalie? Don't listen to Marty's words. Watch his actions. Your B goalie usually starts against the B opponents, or C or D. The Philadelphia Flyers were, I think, 26th in the league coming into this game. So usually you play your backup against the worst opponents, and that right now is Sam Montembeault. It was a tough start for Sam. 3 goals by the Philadelphia Flyers in the first period. 3 goals on 5 shots.
It was bad.
And now, the caveat is that 2 of those goals were on the power play by the Flyers. But even saying that, they weren't. Sam wasn't playing well. Canadiens again stormed back to the rescue. Here they come. Kirby Dach with a couple of goals, second period goals. Ivan Demidov scored on the power play, completely transformed that power play, and Nick Suzuki with his own power play goal, assisted by Demidov. Flyers tied it up in the third period, and then in the shootout, it was Trevor Zegras with the overtime or the shootout winning goal. Bad goals, shootout loss for Montembeault. If we're doing versus, could this game have been representative of Demidov versus Michkov? I think Demidov won that particular versus hands down.
What? Oh. Then finally on Thursday night, the Canadiens took a short road trip down to New Jersey to visit the Rock, where they took on the New Jersey Devils. Once again, going to overtime. This time could not, as opposed to when the final score was 4-3 in overtime on Saturday night against Ottawa. This time it was 4-3 in overtime, but the New Jersey Devils were the ones coming out on top. So another loss for the Canadiens in extra minutes. Dobes, as you just talked about, put your stronger goaltender against better teams. New Jersey, obviously a stronger team, so Dobes gets the start. And it was A, the loss was definitely not his fault, and B, all that aside, he took the loss very hard and very personally.
Personally, yeah, definitely. It was, yeah, this was, you mentioned New Jersey being a better team. They're top 5 in the league. This was in Newark, a road game, so much tougher for the Canadiens. And yes, you put your better goalie in the net. That is Dobes, and he played well. As you said, not his fault. Who do we have as scorers? Kirby Dach, again on the score sheet. Jake Evans with his second. Oliver Kapanen with his 5th goal already, and then Timo Meier tied it up, and Jesper Bratt late with the overtime goal. That overtime goal was a turnover by Newhook. I said the Jekyll and Hyde. There was the bad stuff. The tying goal by Meier, that was just sad, pathetic effort by Mike Matheson. He was awful on that play, letting his man get the tying goal. When you look at, and again, we were talking about, last week, the Canadiens need a defensive defenseman, especially with with Caden Gooley out of the lineup. You look at the Philadelphia game, 4 goals there, and you have number 45 on the ice, 45, 45, 45, 45. That's Carrier, of course. The second goal, Mike Matheson in the penalty box for a dumb puck over the glass penalty. Wasn't pressured. And then Matheson on the ice for the third goal. The Canadiens need a defensive defenseman. And even when Gooley's back, they need someone else who can play on the defensive side well.
So our 3 stars for this week, pleasantly surprised to see Kirby Dach topping off this list. What do you have, 3 goals this week?
Yeah, these are my honors, and I gave it to Kirby Dach. He had 3 goals, 3 even strength goals. Is this has he turned a corner? Is he there? Is he, is he going to be able to take and hold that second line center spot? Well, that's been an issue in the past, and it'll remain to be seen. But I gave him my first star honors for this week. Did have a couple of penalties. So we'll want to see an improvement there, but Kirby Dach gets the number 1 spot.
Ivan Demidov comes in with the 2nd star for the week.
That's the 2nd straight week I've given him the 2nd star. This week, 3 games, 3 points. But of note, 2 goals. And I said last week he needs to trust his shot more. He did. And of the 3 points, 2 power play points.
Wonderful. And also happy to see on this list, Noah Dobson rounding out the 3 stars with the 3rd star for the week.
Gets the star recognition for the first time this season, playing just over 22 minutes a game, and ended up with 3 assists on the week.
Should note there are some guys who are, we're talking about who is performing well each week with the 3 stars. We're not going to go, way into depth with these, but there are guys to keep an eye on who really have been struggling this season and have not maybe performed the way they were billed or how we have been used to seeing. Rick, there's an alarming number of them, actually.
Yeah. Typically, I give honorable mentions. Is this dishonorable mentions? I don't know. It's just guys who are
Need to step it up.
underperforming.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. Joe Veleno, I think that's obvious. Josh Anderson, been kind of invisible. Zach Bolduc talking about invisible, especially in the defensive zone. Alex Carrier, I think he's fourth in the league in block shots. Which is great, but he's on the ice for an awful lot of goals against, and his specialty is supposed to be defense. Mike Matheson, ditto. Jaden Struble, taking some bad penalties. Arbor Xhekaj not getting much ice time, not much trust there, and Sam Montembeault. It's obvious why he's on this list.
Right. So through 14 games played, the Canadiens hold a 9-3-2 record. That's good enough for 20 points. Does have them first in the Atlantic and third in the NHL.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. That's fantastic.
It's wonderful.
It's
almost surprising.
That October start, it wasn't necessarily a great week for the Canadiens,
No.
but that October start has propelled them to near the top of the standings.
Wonderful. In terms of the roster,
Watch out, though. Everyone was celebrating the demise of the Toronto Maple Leafs and Boston Bruins for the month of October. They're both teams have been two of the hottest teams in the league. They're both making a push and should make those rivalry matchups a little more interesting once they come up again.
just one bit of roster news to catch you up on. Wednesday, defenseman Mark Del Gaizo was recalled from the Laval Rocket. That was in order for him to travel with the team to New Jersey. He was a healthy scratch for that game against the Devils. Has not yet actually made his Montreal Canadiens debut. And when they got back into Quebec on Friday, he was returned to the Rockets. So just a quick up and down for Mark Del Gaizo.
Yeah, pretty easy to, there's a lot of home games. We mentioned that 8 of 10 home of the next games in November are home games. So it's easy to manage having extra players around when they're just down the road in Laval. Not able to do that when they're on the road. And so Del Gaizo filled the bill when, the player was likely to sit out, which he did.
That's right. Speaking of Laval, let's take a quick peek at the Habs prospect report.
It's time for the Rocket Report. The Rocket Sports Media Team is your premier source for information about the Laval Rocket, the AHL affiliate of the Montreal Canadiens, as well as Habs prospects playing in the CHL, NCAA, and leagues around the world.
Before we get to our AHL update for the Laval Rocket, let's first take a peek into the WHL, where Montreal Canadiens prospect defenseman Bryce Pickford playing for the Medicine Hat Tigers in the WHL. If you recall, he was drafted in the third round this past summer in 2025, 81st overall. And he has, just absolutely gangbusters to start the season for Medicine Hat and continued to do so this week.
Kind of picking up where he left off last season. Friday night, Medicine Hat had a game against the Tri-City Americans in the WHL. They lost that game 4-3 in a shootout. But Pickford, and you said he's a defenseman, Pickford had 6 shots on goal and had a goal and an assist on Friday night. So his season numbers, he has 8 goals, 8 assists, 16 games. That's 16 points in 16 games. In addition, 25 penalty minutes. You're not shy about taking the penalties. 25 penalty minutes in 16 games and a plus 16 in those 16 games. And he is the captain of the Medicine Hat Tigers. Now, we've talked about him in the past. For those of you that weren't with us, for his first 2 seasons in the WHL, he was with the Seattle Thunderbirds. This is his 4th season in the WHL this season. But for the first 2 seasons, kind of average defensive numbers, 17 points, 54 games. His first season, 17 points, 65 games. His second season in the WHL, I should mention, he was a minus 36 in that second season. And then somehow, when he came to Medicine Hat, he figured it all out, and he was a point-a-game player as a defenseman last season, wearing an A for Medicine Hat, 47 points in 48 games, and not a whole assist, 20 goals, 27 assists, and as I said, just, and I should say 24 points in 18 playoff games. And then this year just picked right up, and is having a sensational season. So a name you may not hear a whole lot when people are talking about Canadiens prospects, but there's one to file. Bryce Pickford of the Medicine Hat Tigers.
Wonderful. Moving over to the AHL, the Laval Rocket played just 2 games in the past week since we last got together. First off, they were having their rematch against the Rochester Americans at Place Bell last Saturday, November 1st. Laval putting a stomping on Rochester with a 5-2 victory. Laurent Dauphin basically doing the whole thing. 4 goals for Dauphin in that game. And Jacob Fowler just lights out again.
Hat trick plus an empty netter for Dauphin, and Jacob Fowler, 36 saves, and was, you know who the first star was, obviously. But Jacob Fowler was the second star of that game.
Then the Rockets had the week for practice and so forth before they would take the ice again last night, which is Friday night. It was their Hockey Fights Cancer night, so wearing the lavender jerseys. Jacob Fowler had a special lavender Hockey Fights Cancer mask as well, looked really sharp. The
lavender jerseys, the lavender socks on the skaters, with the blue, the helmets, and blue pants, they look great.
Yeah, absolutely looked great. This game, I think, was a little closer than Laval would have liked it to have been. In fact, Hartford didn't. They went back and forth. There was some ties and so forth throughout, and Hartford didn't go away. Hartford used to be, in the last couple of seasons, kind of almost a gimme in terms of games, in terms of opponents. This one did not necessarily go that way. It was a little closer than it should have been, but Laval did end up with the victory, 4-2. Should mention that 4th goal was an empty netter by Laurent Dauphin, so that's 5 goals for Dauphin in the past week. But 4 out of those, out of the 6 goals altogether were special. It was a special teams night, all scored on the power play between the 2 teams.
Yeah, good and bad news there, I guess, for the power plays and the penalty kills. Jacob Fowler in the net again, 25 saves. His record now 5-2-0, 229 goals against, 914 save percentage. Of note, he has not yet lost at Place Bell.
That's fantastic.
And Jared Davidson, 8th goal of the season.
Wonderful. He has been absolutely phenomenal down in Laval this season so far. So Laval has played 8 games. They've got a 7-4-0 record for 14 points. That's good enough for 3rd in the North, 9th overall in the AHL. So not too shabby.
11 games, but who's counting?
Did I say 11?
I think you said 8, but
did I say 8? It's 11. 8 and 11. They look exactly alike. 11 games, 7-4-0 for 14 points. 3rd in the North, 9th in the AHL. Not too shabby at all for the Laval Rocket as they continue on. And they just played another game this afternoon against Belleville. Sorry, I take that back. They're not playing today on Saturday. That Belleville game is an afternoon game on Sunday. In Belleville. And then they play a little bit of a wonky schedule for them this week. They have, of course, the Sunday game, 3 p.m. in Belleville. Then on Wednesday, they traveled to play the Springfield Thunderbirds, and they are the lucky recipients of Springfield's annual school day game, which means puck drop on Wednesday, November 12th, is at the bright-eyed and bushy-tailed time of 10:35 a.m.
A.m., yeah.
With a lot of screaming, exciting children. So
second breakfast.
Yeah, something like that. And they will have the pleasure of playing against Milan Lucic, maybe, because the Springfield Thunderbirds have signed him to a PTO.
All right. We won't talk about his problems.
However,
his past
anybody
problems,
the replies about that announcement on social media were an adventure, to say the least. So we'll see if he plays on Wednesday. Quick jump down to the ECHL. The Trois-Rivières Lions, unfortunately, playing the Greensboro Gargoyles on home ice in Trois-Rivières, lost in the shootout 2-1 on military night. But on the bright side, there's a familiar name who did score for Trois-Rivières in the shootout.
Riley Kidney's been back and forth between Laval and Trois-Rivières, and he scored in the shootout in that game.
Even though they did eventually drop that one 2-1 in the shootout. And then Greensboro took it to them again the next day on Sunday. Trois-Rivières lost that one 5-2 to the Gargoyles. So the Lions' record through 6 games played is 3-2-0-1. That's good enough for 7 points. They're at 5th in the North, 21st overall in the ECHL. A couple of losses in the recent weeks. The defending Kelly Cup champs are going to want to get that on the right side of that pretty soon.
Yeah, a bit of a slow start there.
That's right. News from around the NHL. This is a bit of news, a new record that's set, and then a kind of a funny anecdote. Alex Ovechkin making headlines again, becoming the first NHL player to score 900 goals. My goodness.
I know it's a big deal, but does anybody care? I haven't seen anyone talking about this.
Well, yeah, I think Alex Ovechkin fans care.
I mean, I think the Capitals. Yeah, the Capitals fans are into this, but it's a all-time NHL record, and it's a little bit underwhelming. Just the
I think it's maybe not surprising.
Yeah, I guess
either.
I guess it was inevitable.
I think so. Yeah,
is the word to use.
Probably what was also inevitable that with that 900th goal coming with the Capitals playing against the St. Louis Blues and Jordan Binnington in net, that there might be some shenanigans. And sure enough, Binner tried to steal the 900th goal puck. Now,
what an odd play. He was Binnington likes to handle the puck, and
yes,
he was behind the net, stick handling way more for much longer than a goaltender should. Tried to get it past Ovechkin, and he intercepted that clearing pass by Binnington, and then made it around, and it ended up Ovechkin backhanding it past Binnington.
So Binnington just held on to that puck afterwards, and of course he was asked it, because that would have been scandalous had he
tried to drop it in his pants. Yeah,
wandered off the ice with that league's record-setting puck. So afterwards he said, quote, "Yeah, I figured I basically had an assist on that goal there, right? Turning the puck over, so I didn't think he'd mind sharing." He went on to say, "Don't worry, I had full intention to give it back to him." Yeah, full intention to give it back.
Yeah.
He's always been a joke. He has always been a jokester.
I think Binnington's action made it more the achievement more memorable.
That's right.
Yeah.
Talking about memorable, Team Canada and Team Finland have unveiled their jerseys for the upcoming 2026 Olympic Winter Games. Canada, are we surprised that there's a red maple leaf on the crest?
Red maple leaf on a white jersey, kind of classic, and it looks good to me. The one that's a little odd, and I know the Canadiens, their black jerseys in the past, they've went on streaks with it. They've had some good luck with the black jersey with the red maple leaf that's usually encircled by white, an accent kind of outlined in white. They've gone different here. This is a red jersey with a black maple leaf, and the reaction's good generally for the white jerseys, is really negative for the red jersey with black. One of the headlines I saw is, "We just don't understand," and I get it. I mean, the black the black maple leaf, a black maple leaf is dead or diseased, you know? And so, yeah, reviews are not good on this at all. I think, and Finland was the other, the other team to release their jersey. Pretty positive on this one, from all circles.
So both of Finland's jerseys have the country's crest on it, of course. The crowned lion with its right foreleg has been replaced by an armored human arm wielding a sword, and of course its hind legs trampling a saber. It's a very Finland's crest has always been very striking.
Yeah.
I always love the Suomi look to their jerseys as well, and it's very rare that they go wrong with their jersey designs. Last but not least, this is actually a bit of a Canadiens connection involving the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Carolina Hurricanes. How is that? Well, Caden Primo's got to pack his suitcases again because
new mask. After
he was picked up on waivers, Carolina put Primo on waivers, I don't know, a couple of games after the season started. He didn't make it through waivers because Toronto picked him up. Picking him up off waivers meant that he automatically had to remain in the NHL for at least a month. He's done that. He hasn't done very well. So Toronto has put him on waivers, and the Carolina Hurricanes reclaimed him, which means that Caden Primo is going back to the Hurricanes, and he will have another month to kick things around in the NHL.
And Primo is struggling, or has been with the Leafs. 2-1-0 record, 430 goals against, and an .838 save percentage so far this season.
So very, as we've said before, and it's, nobody likes to celebrate any misfortunes that a player is having, but it is just further proof that Caden Primo has just always had much more success as a goaltender in the AHL. He still could be a late bloomer, perhaps as maybe an NHL backup, but he needs some serious time in the AHL.
Maybe permanently. And we had Marty Baron on, it's a while back, but explained really well in a technical way why Caden Primo is a much better goaltender in the AHL than he is in the NHL.
Yes, that is correct. All right, we're going to take our first break here on the Canadiens Connection podcast. We are going to hear from our friends and sponsors over at DraftKings in this commercial break with a special incentive just for you, our Hockey Podcast Network and Canadiens Connection listeners. Then when we come back, we are diving into our big topic segment. Every player has a versus. The Canadiens' individual battles. We're going to unpack what that means right after this. So stay with us. You're listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast on Rocket Sports Radio.
The NBA season tips off, and so does DraftKings' newest fantasy game. DraftKings Pick 6 is the easiest way to play for big wins, with every possession giving you a shot at real money. Here's how to play. Just pick more or less on 2 or more stats and unlock the upside every game brings. Pick 6 is available in Texas, California, Missouri, and more. And new DraftKings customers get $50 in bonus picks with just a $5 entry on your first pick set. Don't just watch basketball, cash in. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN. Play just $5, get $50 in Pick 6 bonus picks. Make the call. Ride the upside. In partnership with DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 bonus picks that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
And welcome back to the Canadiens Connection podcast on Rocket Sports Radio. Once again, my name is Amy Johnson. If you would like to follow my my coverage over on Twitter, on X. You're welcome to follow me there. The handle is @FlyersRule. And of course, with me in the studio is our president and founder here at Rocket Sports. His name is Rick Stevens. You want to be sure to follow him on X as well, particularly because his account is our main account, where you get all of our Habs coverage. You get information about the Laval Rockets games, Trois Rivières games, prospect news, as well as links to all of our content, whether it's audio content, written content, video content. Everything happens over at his Twitter account. Follow him at Rocket Sports. And don't forget, if you haven't done so already, hit subscribe for this podcast while you are listening, whether you are listening on a podcast platform or if you are watching on YouTube. Hit subscribe. You don't ever want to miss an episode. We're here 52 weeks out of the year. We don't ever take a week off of Canadiens coverage, much different than many of the other Habs podcasts that are out there. And so we want you along for the ride all year long. And if you'd like to follow our YouTube channel as well, go subscribe over there. Just head to InsideTheCanadiens.com, and that'll take you right to our YouTube page. Okay, so this week is all about the word versus. And no, we don't mean that sports network that used to be around on television 15, 16 years ago where hockey used to. No, not that kind of versus. This week is all about the word versus, kind of like the unseen or the hidden opponents facing some of the Canadiens' top players. So it's not where we're talking about rivalries or opponents like the Habs' toughest on-ice opponents, but rather we're talking about the kind of personal battles on the ice faced by individual players on the team. Let me give you an example. So Lane Hutson versus the idea of the sophomore slump.
All right, so this is an example, and I think for anyone who's been paying attention this season, it's a pretty easy one to answer. And yes, he started a little bit slow, or didn't quite look himself in the first couple of games of the season. But after signing that $70.8 million contract, the guy who won the Calder Trophy last year is well on his way to avoid the sophomore jinx. He has 13 points in 14 games, and that's second amongst all NHL defensemen.
So versus players that are facing kind of unseen or intangible opponents. So this was Lane Hutson versus the sophomore slump. So now that you kind of get the concept, internal, invisible matchups rather than the traditional team versus team kind of thing. Let's tackle a few of these, and some of them might not be so obvious, but they should all make you think about these players a little differently, and maybe in a way that you haven't thought of before. And the first one has to do with the captain, Nick Suzuki. His versus Nick Suzuki, yes, is playing versus his Ironman streak.
It's listen, Nick Suzuki's having a great season. He is centering one of the top lines in the National Hockey League. All three of those guys are having success. Nick Suzuki is I think we would be very surprised if he wasn't chosen by Team Canada for the Olympics. I think if he continues on this pace, he is a lock to make the Olympic team. But the question was asked, is it bad luck to talk about his consecutive game streak? And that came up because for the first time in a long time, anybody could remember, Nick Suzuki missed Wednesday night's practice, or Wednesday morning's practice, to undergo treatment. Now he was in the lineup, of course, for the Devils game. That was Thursday night in Newark. That was his 469th consecutive NHL game. But yeah, he had missed practice. It was treatment, and it was almost like whispers. Should we talk about this? Should we ask about this? And And it was left to Alex Carrier, and he said, "Listen, let's not talk about this. Let's not talk about this. You got to realize that Canadians, all players, regardless of sport, are superstitious, particularly NHL players, hockey players." And Alex's quote was, "Susie is a warrior. It's really impressive. I myself would like to achieve that game streak, but we shouldn't bring him bad luck." And the unsaid part by talking about this.
That's right.
He wanted to run away from that conversation as quickly as possible.
So before we move on from Nick Suzuki and his verses, maybe there's a subcategory as well for Suzuki. Maybe not a subcategory from his Ironman streak, but just a secondary category for Suzuki and another versus that he's in a battle with. And that's the shootout. Because I think people are figuring out Nick Suzuki in the shootout.
Yeah, Canadians were in a shootout game, as we talked about, on Tuesday against the Flyers. Nick Suzuki, Demidov started off, and you got to have Cole Caulfield. You got to have Nick Suzuki, except Nick Suzuki is 0 goals in his last 12 shootout attempts. If you've watched for any length, you know that Nick Suzuki has one go-to move. It's one that he goes to all the time. It was quite successful, but goose eggs for the last, a lot of shootout attempts. So maybe he has a secondary, as you called it, versus, and that is his shootout move.
That's right. Okay, so next up, that was Nick Suzuki. We've got Ivan Demidov. Now, you might be thinking, Ivan Demidov, what's his intangible versus? Well, when you come onto the scene in the way that Ivan Demidov has arrived in the NHL, people, analysts, pundits, they can't help themselves but to start making early comparisons. And when you get enough of those early comparisons, they become a little larger than life, not only for fans, not only for the media, but for the player sometimes as well. And so Ivan Demidov is versus right now Alex Kovalev and Pavel Datsyuk, the guys who he has been likened to possibly turn into.
Yeah, this is, it's constant. And especially if you listen to the away broadcasts or the opposition broadcasts, and they try to describe him and they try to come up with players. And we've heard the comparison to Kovalev. I don't think he's so much like Kovalev, who would certainly slow the play down. Demidov, yeah, he's his computer, as Marty calls it, is thinking ahead. Last week we told you about the comparison that Sportsnet made to Pavel Datsyuk. High expectations there. We've heard Kiprusoff. We've heard a lot of different names. He's got 12 points in 14 games. He leads all rookies in points. He leads all rookies, NHL rookies, in assists. Who's the best comparison for Demidov? I think we're just going to let him be Demidov and hold off on that and just not get into that right now, because he has adjusted extremely well. He still has some things to ways to go. He's said, even when he's been the first star in games, that not his best game, but he's completely transformed that Canadiens power play. We talked about he's got to get stronger, that he must learn to trust his shot. He did that more this past week, but he's going to progress. And maybe if you choose now, you're going to choose too low, because he's a special player and on his way, I think, to being the Canadiens' best player.
That would be something. He just, no matter when he takes the ice, he's always a threat, even as young and NHL inexperienced as he is. Player number 3 is Jakub Dobes, and this one probably won't be a surprise to anyone when we talk, particularly after the events of this past week. Jakub Dobes, his versus that he's facing right now, his emotions. And that's not to knock his emotions. We're not saying that he needs to dampen his emotions or not feel as strongly as he does, either way, good or bad. But it is it is that kind of silent opponent that he's going to be working with right now, and we saw that struggle in real time after Thursday night's game.
We did. Yeah, and he's a unique personality, as some goaltenders are, and we talked about, his teammates never know what he's going to say or bring up. We talked about his whole experience with what he thought were ghosts in his room and marks on his pillow. We know that he's ultra competitive. We know that he just leaves all of there's no filter at all. His emotions, his words, his thoughts, they're just out there. And he's off to an excellent start. 6-0-1 is his record. 225 goals against, 920 save percentage. He has not lost yet in regulation. He was the third star in the entire NHL for the month of October. But these, as you described them, these roller coaster of emotions that he rides, and he's a young goaltender. And he had kind of a teary moment in his post-game presser this week. He really felt it personally. Mm-hmm. He was criticized by some media for saying that he's too soft and he can't have a goaltender like that and all of that. I'm going to go in a different direction, and I know that she's considered a saint and above all criticism, but I'm going to put this one on Chantal Machabée, because we all know what Jakub Dobes is. We all know, you could see how crushed he was. Not his fault. That Newhook giveaway, we talked about it in overtime. Mike Matheson not being able to take care of his men, the tying goal. But it was talked about afterwards that Chantal Machabée came in and she was, after the interview was over, she stepped in and she was a mother to console him and wasn't that nice and sweet. That's not what he needs. He doesn't need a support. He needs a shield. He needs a shield from the bright lights and the media and the fans who are quick to judge. He needs a shield. He shouldn't have been put in that situation, and someone on their toes and doing their job and knowing the players, knowing their emotions, wouldn't have put him in that situation, and he should have been allowed to work through his emotions in private. And I know a lot of players, Dobson wanted to come to his defense. Marty said he was going to give him a hug. I get all that, but it just kind of makes the moment bigger. Mm-hmm. The other thing you need to do, you need to put that guy back in the net.
Yes.
And immediately. And I'm disappointed that Marty didn't recognize that, and that he isn't starting on Saturday night at home where fans could support him. In the Bell Center right away, so he can forget all about that. I expected better of the Canadiens organization, and I think they let Jakub Dobes down in this case.
A little bit. We're going to stick with goaltenders for player number 4, and that will be Sam Montembeault. And so you might already be thinking, oh, okay, you're going to say his versus is, whatever he's got going on that's making him struggle. No. That is something he needs to obviously work through. But Sam Montembeault's versus right now, the kind of invisible opponent is the fans in the Bell Center at the moment. We are starting to see something that we haven't seen for Sam Montembeault before, and that is the Boo Birds coming out a little bit for Sam Montembeault. Bronx cheers going up when he makes a super simple save. And I'm not sure that Monty's had to deal with that before, particularly from Montreal fans. Some people say it's not fair, but it is something that he now, in addition to whatever any self-doubt that he might have, whatever he's trying to focus on when he is in the net, he's also got that now as an opponent to contend with as well. I'm not saying that the fans are against him. I'm saying that that pressure of not knowing how the fans are going to react, that pressure is the additional opponent that he's now versus when he takes the ice.
And if we be honest, if we be objective, if we take the emotions out of it, Sam Montembeault is kind of a middle-of-the-road goaltender, a mediocre goaltender who has been elevated by the fans, by the media. They've all recognized that it wasn't easy for a goaltender going through the rebuild when the Canadiens were losing a lot and at the bottom of the standings for the first few years of the rebuild. And he's accessible to the French media and they appreciate him, and he's always gotten more than his fair share of praise. But all fans have limits, and is it nice to hear Bell Center fans boo their own players? No. But we've heard it before, directed at power play or the penalty kill, particularly the power play in the past. We've heard it directed at individual players, and I think Bell Center fans have kind of enough is enough. It's been glossed over. A lot of media saying, well, Sam's had a couple bad periods or a couple of bad games. No, he's had a bad season. He's had a bad season. He didn't look good in training camp, in the exhibition games he played. And how bad is he playing now? How bad, it's 3-1 record, which is not too bad. I think the Canadiens have bailed him out, have outscored his issues so he's gotten wins when he really didn't deserve it. His goals against is .367. His save percentage is .855. And if you look at, we remember in the past, everybody and their dog was pointing to goals saved above expected. Well, right now, that figure for Sam Montembeault is a -7. What does that mean? Well, if you look at where he ranks amongst all goaltenders in the NHL, Sam Montembeault is 7th. That's second worst in the National Hockey League in goals saved above expected. And if you need another way of putting it into perspective, even Caden Primo has a better goals saved above expected than Sam Montembeault. Caden Primo in 69th place and Sam Montembeault in 70th. And it was, yes, that same Caden Primo that was just put on waivers. Not saying to put Sam on waivers. Don't put words in my mouth. But he's having a terrible season so far.
And that is Sam Montembeault in 70th place, not 7th, 70th place. In that category amongst NHL goaltenders. All right. Player number 5. Sorry, not sorry. You knew it was going to be Mike Matheson. And Mike Matheson right now does have a versus. Mike Matheson's unseen opponent is that all elusive best defensive defenseman in the NHL. Because, sorry, but if someone in the media is going to go out there and put that label on him, just like back in number 2, when people in the media have been putting the Alex Kovalev and Pavel Datsyuk label on Ivan Demidov, he has that to live up to. He has that he is facing as a versus. Well, then the same rule applies for Mike Matheson. If someone's going to call him the best defensive defenseman in the NHL, that is the opponent now that Mike Matheson is facing, that he has to either live up to or fall short of.
And the other part of that is that Mike Matheson is in transition. Mike Matheson is billed now as one of the Canadiens' defensive defensemen. That's because with the emergence of Lane Hudson, with the addition of Noah Dobson. That's those areas where Mike Matheson was allowed to participate and be relatively successful. The Canadiens have better options in that respect. His role is supposed to be defensive. He's not living up to it. And if you want a thorough breakdown of that, check out last week's podcast, episode 372. We talked about the number of all the specific metrics that rank him well down in terms of being a defensive defenseman, the number of times that he's on the ice for goals against, the fact that high danger shots for the goaltenders go way up when Mike Matheson is on the ice. Mike Matheson, I get it. Criticism is forbidden for Mike. He's a Teflon guy and kind of thin-skinned at that. He bristles when he hears any criticism. But his versus is yeah, I don't know how many people agree with Danny Dubé about him being the best defensive defenseman in the NHL, but his versus is going to be a defensive defenseman, and he's got to start living up to it.
That's right. So that was 5 different versus situations, 6 if you consider the fact that we had a subcategory for Suzuki, but we're going to throw in a bonus one here as well. Kent Hughes versus temptation.
Yeah. Canadiens have cash. They got cap room. They got cash. They've got trade assets. And is Kent Hughes going to be tempted to, and they have cash, they have trade assets, and they have needs. Is he going to be tempted to fill immediate needs for that instant gratification, the gratification of the fans to answer fans who are calling for, and whether it be for a defensive defenseman, whether it be for a second line center, or is he going to be able to stick to the plan to build a lineup that, that sustainable success that they've talked about, to be a perennial Stanley Cup contender. Elliot Friedman this week was talking about Montreal, and he said, quote, "Montreal to me is going to try to get their hands at some point on the best center they can find. They have an aggressive front office. They have cap room. They have young pieces that they can move. So we'll see. Is it going to be Nazem Kadri, as we've talked about before? The players. Jordan Kyrou might have been one of those new additions to the list in that he was a healthy scratch for the first time in his career. Jim Montgomery scratching him. St. Louis is off to a bad start. Would Jordan Kyrou fit? I don't think so. But would he tempt his availability? And nobody's saying he is necessarily available, but because he was a healthy scratch, who do you think that Kent Hughes will be reaching out and inquiring?
So there are some other potential versus situations that we're not going to deep dive into. We're just going to kind of mention them, kind of give you some food for thought, something to chew on, something to think about when it comes to 4 additional players within the Habs organization and their potential, those unseen opponents that they might be working for or against right now. The first is Oliver Kapanen versus second guessers.
Everybody's trying to replace Oliver Kapanen. They want a better center for Ivan Demidov. And all Oliver Kapanen does is continue to score. He's having himself a very good season. So that's an interesting versus to touch on.
Joe Veleno versus, work ethic.
Yeah, he's, I think everybody can agree that experiment is a bit of a failed experiment. He just, you think he has the right goods that are needed for addressing the situation, then he doesn't deliver. Just doesn't seem engaged all the time out there.
Zach Bolduc versus defensive zone play.
Well, you ask Marty St. Louis about the lack of ice time for Zach Bolduc and the fact that, now playing with Kirby Dach and who's playing much better and with Brendan Gallagher. But you ask him about the lack of ice time for Zach Bolduc, and it's Marty talks about the details that they need to work with him on details. Mm-hmm. That usually means play without the puck or play in the defensive zone.
Well, for the last potential one that we've got here for you to think about, this one might involve Marty as well, because it's Jared Davidson playing down in Laval. Rick mentioned that he's already got 8 goals on the season. His opponent right now is just making sure that his cell phone signal is active.
Exactly. Keep your phone on. Take it off mute. Jared Davidson, you have 8 goals in 11 games. Make sure that you're ready to pick up your phone when you get that call up.
He deserves one.
He does. And even Pascal Vincent this past week was quoted as saying that Davidson's name is being discussed amongst the potential call-ups by the Montreal Canadiens. So,
as it should be.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it. Those were a different way to look at verses, a different way to look at opponents rather than in the traditional sense of the word. Kind of maybe some topics that you hadn't considered before, things for you to think about. Would love to hear your thoughts on all of these. So our Canadiens Connection question of the week is actually a 2-parter. You can choose one or both to answer. First up, who do you think is fighting the toughest individual battle on the Canadiens roster right now, and why? So who do you think has the toughest versus battle? It doesn't have to necessarily be one of the ones that we listed. It could be something that you come up with on your own as well. Who do you think is fighting the toughest individual battle on the Canadiens roster right now, and why? The other part of this question is, what's the toughest kind of opponent for a player to overcome? Do you think it's pressure, fan expectations, injuries, self-doubt, and confidence? What do you think when we're thinking of non-traditional versus non-traditional opponents, when an individual player has to overcome those kinds of opponents and obstacles? What do you think is the toughest kind for them to deal with? We'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I think this is a really great topic. Kudos and a stick tap to Rick for the topic this week, thinking outside the box, and a really interesting way to approach the show this week. Can't wait to hear what all of you think about it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But, we have a different audience. We have a thinking group who like to think deeply, not just necessarily a rah-rah kind of, don't want to necessarily hear the rah-rah message. They like to think about issues, respond, and we always get good responses. So this is going to challenge our listeners this week with this topic.
That's right. So send us your text, 585-3-ROCKET. Drop your reply in a comment on Spotify or over on YouTube, or hit us up on social media at Habs Connection. Right now, we are going to take our second break here on the show. This is a new sponsor for right now. This is for our Canadian listeners. We have a special holiday incentive offer from our friends over at Rakuten. You know, Rakuten, where you can go shop, get rewards, get some deals, that type of thing, earn some Rakuten cash to spend on other places. Well, we've got a deal for our Canadian listeners. So check out this message from our friends over at Rakuten, and we'll see you on the other side for segment 3, where we will read your best responses to last week's Canadiens Connection question of the week, right here on the Canadiens Connection on Rocket Sports Radio.
The holidays are here, and that means it's the most wonderful time of the year to save with Rakuten. Use Rakuten to stack cash back at your favorite stores on top of holiday sales. That's savings on savings. With Rakuten, you can get cash back on gifts for everyone on your list, from toys for the kids to kitchen gear for the person who loves to cook to electronics for everyone. You can even save on something for yourself. Just shop the stores you love, like Adidas, Levi's, Old Navy, Lenovo, LG, Sephora, Best Buy, Dyson, or Lego, and cashback is automatically added to your account. And you can choose to get paid via Interac e-Transfer, PayPal, or check. Join for free today and get a new member bonus after minimum qualifying purchases. Just go to Rakuten.ca, download the app, or install the browser extension. That's RAKUTEN. Terms and conditions apply.
And welcome back to episode 373 of the Canadiens Connection podcast. You're listening here on Rocket Sports Radio. Don't forget, subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a review if you're on Apple Music or on Spotify. You're able to leave a review. Hit the like button if you are on YouTube. And no matter where you're listening or watching the podcast, be sure you share this episode on your favorite social media accounts. It just helps to spread the word, helps to grow our Habs fan community even bigger, and it's something easy, quick, and absolutely free that you can do that helps us out here on the show. We greatly appreciate it. Also, don't forget, be sure to visit hockeyhotstove.com to keep up with our written content over there as well. Chris G doing a great job with the weekly written content. So you want to make sure that you're visiting hockeyhotstove.com. Click on the Canadiens logo. That takes you to our coverage over there. And be sure, get your answers into our two-part Canadiens Connection question of the week this week. A, who do you think is fighting the toughest individual battle on the Canadiens roster right now, and why? And B, what is the toughest kind of opponent for a player to overcome? Is it pressure? Is it fan expectations? Is it injuries? Or self-doubt and confidence? Can't wait to hear what you have to say about all of that. Rewinding to last week's episode, we had a question for you last week saying, which Canadiens player has surprised you the most so far this season, good or bad, and why? And we had some very good responses over on YouTube. Let's start first with @P Moran Fidelt. He says, why are we not just giving the start to Dobes? Montembeault is really not proving himself to be the number one goalie. We should give Dobes the start and bring up Fowler or Kakinen. Montembeault might need a little time to develop, but Dobes is proving to be solid in goal and a key for the Habs to win. I think that's fair.
That's a good comment.
I think it's a very
that.
good comment, and I think that's a very fair assessment.
Let me take the next one. This one comes from Dark Matter Eclipse. Dark Matter Eclipse says, Kent Hughes said Slav would take 5 years to develop. Won't be a 50-goal player. This is year 4. Hughes is seeming about right, but no one listened to that. Raw, big players often take longer. Good comment there from Dark Matter Eclipse. Thanks for that.
Very good point. Also had put out on the community post tab on our YouTube channel. Even if you listen to the podcast on a podcast platform, be sure you're visiting our YouTube channel almost every day. You might find a different kind of video there once in a while, but always visit the community tab, the posts tab, because almost every day we have a post there asking you a question, giving you a poll or a quiz. It's a great way to stay engaged and interactive with us throughout the week. And so this week I had put out a question saying, through the first month of the season, because this last week's show was about the lessons we've learned about the Canadiens in the first month of the season, now that October was done. And so I asked the question, if you were to give the Habs a grade through the first month of the season, what would you give them? And Daniel DeJong 6382 says, compared to last year at this time, A+. I have to say, I agree. You remember, we talked about this last week. Horrible start last year, disastrous start last year. Marty St. Louis said at training camp, that can't happen again. I've got a plan. We're not going to let that happen again. And sure enough, they were lights out in October. And got to agree with Daniel that compared to last year, they're doing a fantastic job. So thank you for your comment as well. I did say earlier in the show that we had some responses to the question last week that came in over the Rocket Sports text line at 585-3-ROCKET. And Rick, you had one in particular that you wanted to be sure to share with our listeners.
Yeah, Rocket Sports text line. I'm just going to repeat it again. 5853 Rocket. That's 585-376-2538. This comes from Chris. If you've been listening to the show, Chris, his moniker is the other Hamilton, and he says, "Hello, Amy and Rick. Happy Sunday." Came in last Sunday, and I should just my commentary about Chris is. That he always lays out his case. He presents a lot of detail. He's thoughtful. He's respectful.
Yes, he is.
He's in our fantasy sports leagues. Great guy. We love having him part of the Canadiens Connection community. And his text was all about Mike Matheson. Now, it's long. I said I liked his detail, but it doesn't always fit well on the show. So I may have to edit here as we go along. After his hello message, he says, "Great content and discussion as always. I appreciate the depth of discussion and thought that goes into the shows. Thank you. My exceeding expectations offering is Mike Matheson. Hear me out, please. He's not the individual on the team who most exceeds expectations, but without his play, the Habs would be far worse off today. On a very reasonable contract for now." Okay. That's my
for
addition. The contract numbers that are being talked about for an extension. He goes on to say, great value for what he brings. Placed on the Habs first pairing, continues to do a damn nice job in this chair. This allows the rear of the D to slot into their appropriate chairs. The only quibble I have with that is because they want Matheson on the left side, that forces Lane Hudson to his wrong side, which he's very adept at playing. Would he be better on his left side? Well,
hopefully we'll get to find out sooner rather than later.
Yeah, let's find that out. Mike Matheson, he's extremely versatile. He can play power play, penalty kill, leads all Habs players in ice time. Says that at almost 25 minutes per game, he will be on the ice for more goals against, just math. He'll also be on the ice for more goals for. That's just math. That's my addition. And he talks about, we had talked about Mike Matheson in the Vancouver game and the Seattle game, on ice for all but one of the goals in both of those games. And so he makes some comments about that. Matheson is a veteran, stabilizing presence on the Habs back end, seamlessly assuming the mantle after Savard's retirement. Different players, I think. Where would the Habs D be right now if Mike was executing elsewhere and a young NHL inexperienced Ingstrom was logging third line minutes? I'd argue there's different ways to attack that, but it might have been nice to have Kovacevic still around. But anyway, there's lots of ways around that. If you put that direct comparison, and obviously Matheson, but I think the point we were trying to make is the Canadiens need a defensive defenseman going forward, not exactly what's best right now.
Right.
And we emphasized or read the full quote of Danny Dubé, who said that Mike Matheson was the best defensive defenseman in the National Hockey League. And our dear friend Chris goes on to say, quote, "It's laughable anyone would argue he's the best defensive D-man in the NHL. He's clearly not. What he has done, though, is reinvent his playing style to meet the needs of the team at Marty's behest. His personal stats are worse for this, but the team's execution is quite the opposite. The Habs wouldn't be executing as well as they are now with Mike on PP1, but they also be significantly underperforming if he was packaged before the season, as many wanted, in a trade for that elusive 2C. And Chris concludes by saying, he's not my favorite Hab. That would be Cole Caulfield. What I do know, though, is without him, the Habs would be markedly worse off than they are now, and that deserves some acknowledgement." Great comment, very detailed.
Very well thought out.
Very thoughtful, very
presented well.
Respectful, very well argued. And we always, always, always appreciate hearing from Chris.
Absolutely. And any of you. Send in your opinions. They don't have to match our opinions. And when you have an opinion that doesn't match our opinions, that's A-okay. particularly when you present it in such a respectful and polite way where you're just, hey, let me state my case. And that's what he said. I'm saying, Matheson, hear me out, please. And then
We're glad to do that.
We're glad to do that. And we're glad to tell everyone else about it too, because you make some valid arguments to back up your opinion that probably other fans agree with as well. So thank you for that. And we always look forward to hearing from all of you. So coming up this week, the Canadiens are home, and home. Remember, we said last week they have a very home-heavy schedule for the month of November. I think they only have 2 games on the road this month or something like that. So Utah and the Mammoth come to the Bell Center on Saturday night. The LA Kings come to town on Tuesday, and the Dallas Stars will be arriving in Montreal for a Thursday game. Should be 3 really good games. Should be interesting to watch. It'll be also interesting to see what the goaltending assignments look like. We know that Montembeault is going to get the Saturday night game against Utah. We'll see what happens for Tuesday and Thursday. And then, of course, we will be back here again next Saturday, November 15th, for the next episode of the Canadiens Connection podcast, where guess what? We're going to talk about everything that's happened in those 3 games and so much more. Hit subscribe. You don't want to miss it. Thank you so much for being here with us each week. Enjoy the game tonight, Tuesday, and Thursday. And we'll see you again here next time on the Canadiens Connection podcast on Rocket Sports Radio.